Thanks you for watching this video. Please comments below your ideas to help me make more interesting video. Best smartphone cameras: Galaxy S7 vs iPhone 6s vs Nexus 6P vs Lumia 950. It's time to find out who makes the best smartphone camera. Recently a new smartphone waltzed onto the scene, throwing a gauntlet to the ground. "We have the best smartphone camera," Samsung said. There are already some excellent smartphone cameras out there. We learned that from our previous smartphone camera showdown, and with the new entrants into the field, the time has come to do a proper comparison between them all. So let's do this. It's Apple iPhone 6s Plus vs Huawei Nexus 6P vs Microsoft Lumia 950 vs Samsung Galaxy S7, otherwise known as the challenger and the new kid on the block. Okay, let's get to it. We've laid out the photos in a grid so you can easily compare them side by side. They are arranged in this order: iPhone 6s, Nexus 6P, Lumia 950, Galaxy S7. Indoors. As you might be noticing, none of these is a particularly bad camera. In fact, we'll say they're all pretty great, so our analysis here is going to trend towards nitpicky preferences. Your opinion may differ, and that's okay. When it comes to indoor photography, none of these phones come up short. The Galaxy S7 tended to produce photos that were a little more saturated than the rest, but when it came to balancing darks and lights, it was hard to top the Lumia 950's HDR-rich capture, which was able to accurately and cleanly bring out detail and visibility in the Windows photo. As things got darker, the iPhone and Lumia struggled a bit, though, with the iPhone producing a photo darker than the rest and the Lumia ramping up the brightness too much to the point that it was blowing out light sources and washing blacks with gray. Daylight. When it came to outdoor shots, things started to get interesting. The Nexus 6P occasionally struggled with brightness, sometimes producing photos that were overexposed, and other times offering conspicuously dim photos in acceptable lighting conditions. The iPhone 6s Plus, Lumia 950 and Galaxy S7 all were consistently great in direct sun and under cloud cover, though the GS7 tended to produce images that were more vibrant and a touch brighter. While the iPhone's colors may have technically been more accurate, it's hard to argue that the GS7's results don't look better. Panoramas unfortunately leave the Lumia 950 out of the equation. As with the RAW and manual photography statements, we're going with the default app on these phones, and the Lumia camera app does not support panoramas. The GS7 and iPhone both offer sweep-style panoramas, while the stock Google camera app on the Nexus requires the user to pause and let the phone take photos at specific points. Under favorable lighting conditions, either method will produce fine results. But under less great conditions, backlit, or dark, as you'll see below, the Nexus style approach seems to yield sharper, brighter, and better balanced results. As dusk began to set, the iPhone and Lumia photos reflected the yellowing of the light, while the Galaxy and Nexus compensated by tweaking things toward the blue side of the color spectrum. For portrait photography, that may be ideal, unless you're into the jaundiced look, but it's not exactly an accurate reflection of the conditions in which the photo was taken. Nighttime. When it started getting dark is when things started to go south for the iPhone. While it excels at well-lit photographs with accurate colors and sharp details, the small sensor and tight aperture mean that there's simply not nearly as much light getting into your photos. And so the cameras with larger sensors and wider apertures tended to perform better. The Nexus 6P occasionally struggled with blown-out bright spots in the darkness and noticeable oversaturation. When it came to preserving detail in the darkness, the Lumia 950 was king thanks to its large sensor, wide aperture, optical stabilization, and a significant bump in pixel count over the competition. The difference is very noticeable on close inspection of the vertical lines of the bridge railing, where buckets of fine detailing comes through that's lost in the muddled results of the other phones. But the greatest darkness struggle came with the panorama, again, leaving out the Lumia. The iPhone, even with the benefit of OIS, produced an image that was hilariously dim, losing all sorts of detail into inky blackness. For all the true-to-life tendencies of the iPhone's image processing, it falls far short here. The Nexus went to the other extreme. Its dark panoramas were crisp and bright, too bright, actually. Where the iPhone lost detail to the shadows, the Nexus blew out the brights like it was nobody's business. Somewhere in the middle you'll find the Galaxy S7. None of these phones produced a panorama that was close to what the naked eye saw or the regular photographic capabilities of these cameras. Challenging lighting. This section originally was going to be titled Food, because we all apparently love to take and share pictures of our meals, but it ended up being a better test of how these cameras perform under challenging lighting conditions. In particular, that delectable new-esque ham sandwich on grilled sourdough with asparagus, grilled banana peppers, and a melted mix of Gruyere and Gouda, was illuminated by the red glow of the neon signs seen earlier in this overview and indirect sunlight coming in through the windows behind the photographer. That sort of lighting is something our eyes are perfectly capable of adjusting to. We know that it's red light and we see the asparagus and lettuce as green, the banana peppers as yellow, and the ham as pink. But a smartphone camera, even the vaunted LG G4 with its color spectrum sensor that's supposed to be able to compensate for that, struggles in that light to portray what we see. The iPhone was perhaps the closest to reality, although the Lumia did a commendable job of preserving detail and sharpness at the edge of the sandwich. If it had been even remotely closer to the correct color temperature, it could have been a really great photo. The beer photo was taken after a fresh pour of Breckenridge's Nitro Vanilla Porter in a dimly lit bar, and the Galaxy S7 performed admirably here, with a capture bright and crisp enough that you can almost make out the individual miniature nitrogen bubbles. The other phones? Not so much. Macro. The minimum focusing distances of each camera were surprisingly different. The Lumia 950 let us get closest, but only marginally more so than iPhone 6s Plus and Samsung Galaxy S7. The Nexus 6P was roundly disappointing in comparison, requiring nearly twice the minimum distance before it would focus cleanly. When you crop in, however, the Galaxy S7 surprised with a comparatively sharp capture. The other phones claimed to have been focusing, but even after repeated attempts we weren't able to get a straight-on macro shot that approached the GS7's sharpness. Coming at the coin from an angle surely would have helped to produce more in-focus captures, but that's not really pushing the cameras to the limit. Selfies. When it comes to the front cameras on these phones, all but the Nexus 6P have 5MP units, while the 6P, and its 5X little brother, have 8MP front-facing cameras. Regardless of how many megapixels you're working with there, we're talking about a camera that has a smaller lens and a smaller sensor, and something you'll generally be pointing at your face, as you do with a front-facing camera. As with the rear cameras, in excellent lighting they all perform incredibly well. But throw in challenging lighting conditions and things start to fall apart. The iPhone was the only camera that was able to consistently and accurately focus on my mug regardless of lighting, but its comparatively tiny sensor and aperture meant that photos in the dark were, well, quite dark, and it struggled to balance the bright light in the first set against the relative darkness of where I was standing. But my face was the closest to well exposed than the others, even if that resulted in a horribly blown out background. Even when at good light the Galaxy S7 struggled with detailing on my face. Where the iPhone, Lumia, and Nexus all picked up copious skin detailing, something with the Samsung phone resulted in smoothed out skin, and yes, the beauty mode that was enabled by default was turned off before these photos. That said, the front-facing HDR that both the Galaxy S7 and iPhone 6s Plus fired off resulted in the closest to balanced photos between my spot in the shade and the sunlit city behind me. Upon heading into a darker environment, things got even more difficult for each of these cameras. The Lumia and Galaxy struggled to focus despite poking the screen to tell it where to focus. The iPhone struggled in the dim light, but at least its facial recognition saw my face and accurately focused. But the award in this round goes without question to the Nexus 6P. Not only is its bigger 8MP photo more details, it also had zero trouble focusing and producing a crisp and relatively bright selfie as a result. Conclusion. So who makes the best smartphone camera? More than ever, that's a toss-up. These are all four great cameras, with strengths and weakness in each. A lot of it comes down to your personal photographic, or platform, preferences. If you want true-to-life colors, you'll want an iPhone or Lumia 950. But if colors that pop are more your thing, then the Galaxy S7 will serve you well. If you're taking a lot of photos or videos in the dark, then you shouldn't bother with the iPhone, and you should avoid the electronically stabilized Nexus 6P if you intend to shoot a lot of video. If you need the most detail and intuitive manual controls, the 20MP Lumia 950 is the phone for you. And if you want the fastest possible access to the camera, double-clicking the Galaxy S7's home button will serve you well. For a long time Apple was king of the smartphone cameras hill thanks to their obsessive focus on camera quality over the megapixel race. Samsung's dialing back to 12MP in the Galaxy S7 over the 16MP in the GS6 is all the indication we need that the megapixel wars are over. The focus is on quality and everybody is delivering excellent sensors and software to match. If there's anything to take away from this matchup, it's that you would be well served by any of these cameras, and they're attached to some really great phones to boot. If push came to shove and you needed us to offer a recommendation of the best smartphone camera, knowing full well that there's always another phone on the horizon that threatens to take even better photos, we would tell you the Samsung Galaxy S7 has the best camera of the bunch, but only by a hair. But, like we said, it comes down to your personal preferences. So which phone do you think took the better photos?